Hi there VC, Steve Whitty here. Time for a new video. Unlike the last two videos, this is going to be a video where I show some vinyl. It's recent finds for November, and this is sort of part one because I've picked up a fair bit. This video I am going to show, I think, show 20 albums, so it may be a long one. I'm trying to show and tell rather explain too much. If you're new to the channel, if you like to click on the subscribe button, please do, more the merrier. But so without further ado, let's start off with the first of these albums. Alice Coltrane, Journey in Sachandanda, I think is how you pronounce it, released in 1971. This is her fourth solo album. This particular edition here is a reissue. I think it's might be 2017. The actual album itself, the inspiration comes from the Swami Sachandanda. Alice Coltrane had become a disciple of his. So you've got tracks on here, sort of really see the direction she was going in her life at that time. You've got Shiva Loka. If you don't know, Shiva is the third member of the Hindu Trinity. The track Stop Over Bombay refers to a trip that she made to India and Sri Lanka in December of 1970. And Oasis and Oasis is really just highlighting her interest in Middle Eastern and North African music and culture. I came across this album originally, I think about 2017, excuse the glare there, from a classic Album Sunday event that happened, and it was the first time I'd ever heard the album. I mean, it impressed me that much, although I couldn't really afford the vinyl, find the vinyl. I brought myself a CD copy. I'm now lucky to find a vinyl copy at a good price. I was quite happy to dare to upgrade and donate the CD to charity. Next album, PJ Harvey, released in 2004. This is the 2021 reissue. This was her sixth album. The album was written and recorded over a 2-year period. So apart from the drum tracks, she pretty much plays every instrument on the album. Harvey herself wanted to make this album a simpler affair from the previous album, which was the phenomenally successful Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea. And again, I think this is probably why PJ Harvey is so popular, is the fact that she's willing to take risks and change the sound of the album. And this is actually a really good album. I think it passed me by when it first came out. Maybe I went for a stage where I wasn't listening to too much music, but this, I'm actually glad I picked this up. This is a really good album. Definitely maybe Oasis, released in 1994. Their debut, and in my opinion, their best album. The whole album oozes swagger and attitude, and I think it's best summed up in its opening song, Rock and Roll Star. Tonight I'm going to be a rock and roll star. No messing about. This is what it was. What Oasis wanted, or Noel Gallagher wanted when he wrote the song. The tracks like Slide Away, Live Forever, to just give this whole album a classic rock feel. You know where the influences lie. It's not nothing groundbreaking, but it's just at the time, it just came right at the time. You know what? I think it's an antidote to Britpop. I know it got tagged in with Britpop, but I think it's the antidote, because I think it was more actually showing that working class kids could still make it. I think that with Blur, there was always the element of middle class there. I don't really want to go down the road to a class system in England, but I think it was the total opposite to what Blur were. But it's just a classic album, and I think, and then they followed it with Morning Glory. Just put Oasis Oasis had that big band feel. I think that's how I would best sum it up. Now, a couple albums by this band, City Boy, a band from Birmingham. You have to excuse me, I've got sniffles. There we go. That's better. City Boy. This is their second album, Dinner at the Ritz, released in 1976. It just sort of follows on from their debut album, City Boy. Produced by Mutt Lange, one of his early productions. He also produced their first album. This is giving the band a sort of polished rock sound, which they became famous for, and you could see this is what Lange was famous for. While it didn't chart in the UK, it did chart in the US, reaching 170. So you know, it's some really good. They don't call them tracks on here; they call them tables. So it's sort of like Dinner at the Ritz. Not a bad album. I've suddenly started to grow to appreciate City Boy. They're a band that I heard a lot of on local radio, being from the Midlands, Sutton Coldfield, just on the edge of Birmingham. They followed it up with Young Men Gone West in 1977. Again, follows the same formula Mutt Lange produced. But while carrying on the same formula, it developed the sound. It sounds more polished, which is not bad for a band from Birmingham. And you know, they were slowly gaining momentum. It didn't chart in the UK, but charted in the lower reaches of the US Billboard 200. Yeah, corking album. Corking band, it's worth checking out. You'll find these in the cheap bins if you've never heard it, and you're sort of interested in, particularly in Mutt Lange's early production. Difford and Tilbrook, their only solo album, released in 1984. After Squeeze initially split in 1982, they went out on their own. As I said, this would be the only album. It was produced by Tony Visconti, but however, A&M did not like the mix, and so brought in Eric Thorngren to provide a new mix. Some of the tracks, it's nothing remarkable about it. In a way, it's where they were trying to go. I suppose they were trying to be squeezed without being squeezed, and thinking, well, we're the songwriters, we'll have that success, and it didn't quite work out. I mean, they did get squeezed back together with Jules Holland the following year, but some of the tracks have lasted. Hope Fell Down has appeared on a couple of them Squeeze comps, and the Love's Crashing Waves would be played by Squeeze well into the 2010s. So, bit of classic 60s pop, rock, whatever you want to call it. Best of the Troggs, released in 1967. As it features all the best Troggs songs up to that time. Troggs, if you didn't know, were formed in Andover in Hampshire, led by Reg Presley. They, I think, provided a major influence on garage and punk rock, and particularly the song Wild Thing, which was their biggest worldwide hit, reaching number 2 in the US and number 2 in the UK, sorry, number 1 in the US. There's the band. I think the charm was they had the accents, the local accents. It sort of gave them a yokel feel. But you got here, Night the Long Grass, Gonna Make You Any Way That You Want Me. 6 6 5 4 2 3 2 1. I Want You, With a Girl Like You, which was a number 1 hit in the UK. I Can't Control Myself, Girl in Black, Give It To Me, You're Lying, From Home, and of course Wild Thing. Just real classic, and it's a real clean copy. I paid 15 quid for this. Pete in the shop, he had 2 copies of this, and it's the first album, I believe, released on Page One, which was Larry Page's, their manager's own record label. Excuse me again. of all things to find in a charity shop is Jimi Hendrix Legacy. And for those of you thinking, I've never seen that album before, this is a Japan only release, double album. It's sort of a rap greatest hits, mid-70s. There you go. You see the Japanese wording on there, and you've got all the, I won't take it out because it's quite tight fitting, but it's got all the booklets in Japanese with English subtitles. The only thing that's missing is the Obi strip, which is probably why I got it for quite a nice deal. So it's yeah, I'm really happy to have that. You can't have enough Hendrix. I mean, if it had been a normal comp, I'd have probably just left it alone. But I think because it was Japanese, I think the record collecting nerd in me decided that I'd have to have that one. Hipsway, their self-titled debut album, released in 1986. Scottish band formed by Johnny McElroy, who was the ex of Altered Images. He then would go on to form Texas after the Hipsway split. Best known track is the opening track on the album, The Honey Thief. It provided them with their biggest UK hit single, and this is a mixture of pop stroke new wave. It's an album. It did pretty well both in the UK and US. Probably better in the US, where I think it scratched the top 50 in the Billboard 200. It couldn't really follow it up, and they split, and Johnny McElroy went off and formed Texas to great success. I think there is a version of Hipsway still gigging, I'm not sure. John Martin's Solid Air from 1973. This is classic John Martin. And in my view, if you're only going to own one of his albums, this is the one I would recommend. It was his 4th solo album, and it was recorded over a period of 8 days. And it's a total mishmash. You know, it's acoustic guitar, but it's just total... he just threw everything at it. And I'll give you an example. There's a cover of Skip James, Devil's Got My Woman. It sounds nothing like the original. And the way it comes out, it's almost like... yeah, it almost sound, and I think it's retitled "I'll Rather Be the Devil," but so it makes the song his own on there. The title track "Solid Air" is dedicated to Nick Drake, who is his friend. Nick Drake would pass away a couple of years later. But that Nick Drake, for those who don't know, was singer-songwriter, but immensely introverted, very shy, hardly. His original records never sold, and he was so introverted he couldn't play live. And he had mental health issues. Now, you know, would know it, and he accidentally overdosed. The one thing about Nick Drake is that Joe Boyd, his producer, insisted that, you know, whatever you do, insisted Chris Blackwell Island Records, whatever you do, don't ever delete his records, and they never have. So you can get various editions of his albums. Anyway, back to John Martin. Probably the best known track on here is probably his signature tune, "May You Never." True classic track. I think it was the track everyone spun to when Martin passed away. So there you go. Halfway there. Ranking Dread, and this is Lots of Loving. Born Winston Brown, he was a DJ in Jamaica, moved to London in the 70s. This is his 3rd album. It's a reissue, by the way, and this features production by co-production with Sugar Minott. Unfortunately for Brown, he would disappear from music, and he became more well known for his criminal activities. He was once labelled the most dangerous man in Britain, and this led to an appearance on a programme called The Cook Report. Basically, it was a TV investigation journalist, Roger Cook, would go around at great risk to himself, challenging people that were doing things again, which he felt were against the law and often as personal risk to himself. Brown would eventually end up back in Jamaica via the US and Canada, where he'd end up being deported, and he eventually would die in prison back in Jamaica in 1986. Move on, that more dub reggae, and this is something I can't find anything about. This is the Simeons Dub Conference in London, and it's I couldn't find much information about this band, but what I do like, I just enjoyed listening to the album. As it said, Dub Conference in London, Dub Under Contract, Love Dub, LT Time, More Time, 16-track rock, Ya Rastafari, Immortal Dub, Cool Step-Ins, Market Control. I'm slowly getting more into reggae, and that's because Pete at the shop's really big on reggae. He's got a big reggae section, and he's always buying collections, and there's and on a Saturday we've got a good reggae crowd coming to play the record, so it's always worth listening. It's an education for me. Ronn Stones, Goat's Head Soup, 1973. This is an upgrade copy for me. It's upgrade. It's actually a reissue, but the reason I've gone for it is it's got sort of like in a sleeve, and it's also got the actual goat head in the soup, which for a vegan, yeah, might be a bit strange choice to upgrade a record, but hey, it's the music that counts. Anyhow, this is the 11th UK studio album, I think the 13th in the US. Partially recorded Jamaica, US and UK. This would be the last album produced by Jimi Miller. What's more noticeable is that Bill Wyman only appeared on 3 of the tracks. Keith Richards doesn't play on the track Winter. The best known track is Angie, which was a top 5 single. But critics, when it came out, it was mixed. It is a bit of a hodgepodge, and I suppose it would always be a difficult act to follow Exile, but other influences were kicking in as well at that time, and you could see maybe this is the album where the start of what could be seen as a decline in the band's not fortunes, but the quality of the material albums that were to come out. Jethro Tull, Stand Up, again another upgrade. This came out in 1979. Well, it's not an original pressing, it is like a third pressing. It's on Iron Pink label, but I've now got a copy that does that, and that can't be bad. And this is the first album, released in 1969. This is the second album. It's the first album to feature Martin Barr on guitar, but more importantly, it's the album where Ian Anderson really takes control of the music and lyrics, which results in sort of like a hodgepodge of various styles. The album itself would be immensely successful. #1 in the UK, #20 in the US. As I said, this is an upgrade for me, and I'm pleased to have it played beautifully. David Bowie, Tonight. This came out the £2 box. I've always had doubts about this album, and I think they were led to be proven right from what others had said about it. This is the rushed follow-up to Let's Dance, and it's Bowie's 16th studio album, and I think it saw him he's trying to keep the audience he'd gained from the huge success of Let's Dance, and Let's Dance was a phenomenal record for him, where he hit on that formula of the pop rock sort of thing, and he played a big tour, sold it out everywhere. However, the problem was that Bowie himself was devoid of any ideas. He only ended up writing 2 new songs for the album, 3 Iggy Pop covers, including the title track. And Bowie would go on. This is the start of his mid-80s slump, a period which I think left Bowie totally dissatisfied. He was chasing the audience instead of being innovative. He was sort of trying to keep up with trends, which is a shame. it's not a bad album. It plays clean. But it ain't up there, and it's. And I'm not sure whether I want to pick up a copy of Never Let Me Down. I probably will if the price is right. Causal Flyers, The Great Artiste. This is their second album, and if you can see closely there, the person that originally had it went and saw them at Birmingham Town Hall for the princely sum of £1. Causal Flyers' reputation came really from their live shows rather than their studio recordings. It is a bit patchy, to say the least. So the last album that was on, they released on the UK record label, which was Jonathan King's label, and it was going into financial difficulties at that time. As I said, they built up a solid live reputation, own stuff and covers as well. And that's because Paul Shuttleworth, the lead singer, had built up an image as a bit of a wide boy, sort of like an old spiv type character. But I suppose, and I think listening to the album, it does reflect that the quality of material's patchy. However, as I may have mentioned when I've shown Causal Flyers records before, their lasting influence was the BBC documentary that was made in 1975, showing life on the road, which was the big influence on This Is Spinal Tap. So if nothing else, you can thank the Causal Flyers for that. Album I was given to by Pete in the shop. This is Rattenson. That's I think how you pronounce it. They're a Swedish power pop band, punk band. 14 tracks. I think this album was released in 2019. It's not bad. It's not bad. I think it deserves to be listened to by a wider audience. And yeah, I think it's a good album. It's a good album. I suppose a lot of local acts. I think Pete's got a distributor in Sweden. That's how he's got hold of this album. And he wasn't sure if I would like it, but I actually do quite like it. I like mixtures. I do like snappy short songs, which this album has got a lot of. So yeah, if you ever see anything, I'd recommend you stream them, Ratterson, if you can, and have a listen. More reggae. Third World. This is their debut album, released in 1976, produced by Chris Blackwell. And I'd never heard this album before until I played it. I knew Third World mainly of their singles. They're pop-based singles, but this is a really good reggae album. And what makes this stand out is Third World were not afraid to add other influences to their reggae sound. They're quite serious musicians. I think the lead guitarist, Kat, really saw himself as a serious musician, not just as somebody that just played reggae guitar. But you've got on here, I think they've got, Slavery Days, the Burning Spear song from Marcus Garvey they cover. It's a good mixture of original and cover. You can see where, I think, using those other influences, why they had successful hit singles. I think they weren't afraid to release something that was commercial. Almost done. I've got two more to show. The Tubes, Young and Rich, released in 1976. Their second album, studio album. And I'm really happy to find this because this is difficult to find. It's not out on CD. It's been deleted on CD because I think they've just combined the first two albums together. In a way, it carries on the formula of the first album. There's the band. Theatric, pop rock, pump. Best known track on here is the closer of side 1, Don't Touch Me There. Produced by Ken Scott. So you can see, and you can see by the look there, it's all on the tail end of glam. Moving on to punk new wave because they're sort of associated with that as well. Excuse me. You've got tracks like Proud to Be American. Now, given the context of the time, 76, this is where coming out to Vietnam, it's just sort of like mocking, in my eyes, the American values. I think now if you produce a track proud to be American and you seem to be mocking it, I think there'd be in a lot of trouble. But as I say, really pleased to find that. It's a really good album. I like the Tubes. I think they're underrated band. And the final album is After the Rain by Muddy Waters. I was given this by Pete. That's because there is a little warp at the start, and I want to say little warp. It only literally affects the first 3 spins, and then it plays perfectly. This was released in 1969, the follow-up to Electric Mud. I think where Electric Mud was quite a controversial album. People didn't quite like that psychedelic sound, so Waters released this. He got more of his own songs in. It was still distorted guitar, but it moved away from the psychedelic sound, and it really is a good album. Really enjoyed that. Enjoyed listening to this. It was a pleasant surprise. I haven't got that much Muddy Waters in my collection, so always pleased to find something like that. So there you go, VC. Those are my records. As I say, I hope everyone's well. Let me turn my iPad off. Hope everyone is well. That they're looking forward to the holiday season that's coming up. Those of you in America, I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. So if you're new to the channel and you like what you see, click on the subscribe button. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Love the interaction. Feel free to leave me a comment. I will get back to you. And I really want to thank all those that regularly do comment. I don't have a big subscriber base. I've never really set out courting subscribers. You either do, you don't. You know, you don't have to watch my video. I haven't got not holding a smoking gun against people's back. So whatever you get up to, VC, make sure you have a good one. And again, I thank you all. So keep spinning. Look after yourselves. More importantly, keep on smiling.